This is reading selection number 1 for the English 20-2 reading comprehension test. This is Mystery of the Haunted Pool by Phyllis A. Whitney. After lunch, Susan wandered outside to look at the little pool that had such a dark history behind it. The glade was as quiet as she remembered it. She sat down on the log that protruded into the water and watched the dappling movement of sun and leaf shadows on the pale green surface. The aura of green came mainly from the reflection of trees and shrubbery and did not reach into the center. A splash from a rock near the bank made her turn in time to see a turtle flop into the water. There must be all sorts of curious living creatures down there in the pool's depths. Yet it was such a small pool, not at all like the big lake up near the highway. How had it been possible for a grown person to drown in such a place? Surely it couldn't be very deep, even out in the middle. She stood up and inched her way along the log toward the spot where it vanished underwater. Below skittering water bugs on the surface, the depths of the pool were somberly lighted by the sun. Susan could see thick, oozy mud on the shallow bottom and small, darting fish playing around an old tree stump submerged beneath the water. When a breeze ruffled the surface, it wrinkled like silk, then smoothed into glassy stillness, very clear and transparent. As she stared at it, what she had thought was a brown tree stump took on a strange shape, a shape that was almost human. A face seemed to be looking up at her from the bottom of the pool. The nose and mouth were clearly marked, as were the hollow eyes that watched her with hypnotic intensity. Knowing perfectly well that it could not be a real face she saw, Susan had the feeling, nevertheless, that the haunting eyes commanded her, that they asked something of her that she must not refuse. She wrenched her gaze from the water, compelling herself to look at the treetops, green and feathery against the yellow bright sky of early afternoon. The face was an optical illusion, of course. It wasn't really there. Old chunks of wood often seemed to have pictures in them, or it might be just an oddly worn rock. When she had blinked a few times to clear her vision, she looked into the water again. The face was still there, staring straight up at her. It looked much more like a real face than any stump or rock she had ever seen. She edged back to shore and searched the bushes nearby for a long stick. Then she returned to her position on the log. Carefully, she reached down through the water to prod the chunk of log or rock, or whatever it was that looked like a face. But the stick slipped off onto the bottom, and mud surged up like a dull brown smoke through the water, clouding everything. The face was lost in the murk, and Susan knew it would take some time for the mud she had churned up to settle so that she could look down through the clear water again. Somehow she did not want to wait. The loneliness of the place made her uneasy, as it had before. She thought of Sarah Teague, who had died here so strangely, so tragically, and who, legend had it, still haunted this vicinity. Panic seized her. She was suddenly more frightened than she had been last night over the queer sounds in the house.